HOA story time. I bought my first home in the winter of 2021. It is a condo, half of a duplex, with the other half owned by my neighbor. Let's call her Carol, because her real name is all too appropriate. Together, we have equal interest in the property's HOA. Before I had even made my first mortgage payment, she was telling me that I needed to increase my HOA fees to account for an increase in expenses for lawn care. She reasoned she did not need to do the same because she was unemployed and handled the books. Well, I proposed the alternate solution of doing lawn care ourselves, which she agreed to, and we have shared the duties moving forward. Fast forward to a few weeks ago. Leaves were covering the front and the backyards and the driveway. I noted this, especially the driveway, as it can get slippery with leaves, but I could see a lot more leaves were yet to fall. On a Sunday morning, after we had been working at the craft fair for over 12 hours the day before, my neighbor texted to ask if we planned to do any lawn cleanup. I replied, explaining that it was on my to-do list, but was leaving for a trip that week and I planned to address it the following weekend. I received no reply, but noticed that she had people over that evening, so I assumed that she had been looking for it to be done that day before her company arrived. The next day, she texted me that she took care of the raking that time, but was so exhausted that she could not move the pile of leaves that she created until the day after. It had rained earlier. She said that the leaves could not have waited because they would mat and freeze together. I offered to finish where she had left off since I had an unexpected day off, but she declined. The weekend following our trip, as I had said we would, I raked both yards and my partner cleared the driveway. I distributed some of the collected leaves along the edge of the yard to decompose and feed the garden beds, and I added the rest to a compost pile that Carol had started in the far back corner of the yard. The next morning, she texted me asking to finish the job by moving all of the leaves to the compost pile. I explained that the placement was intentional. This then prompted her to send me a long email, in lieu of a condo meeting, and going into general condo concerns, but really focusing on the yard work and the surrounding expectations. Throughout it, she expressed that she was open to my ideas, but the primary impression was, "I know better than you." She details why the lawn needs to be mowed weekly during the summer, but not cutting it too short. She says that only moving the leaves to the side of the yard will cause them to be blown back into the yard, and instead they all must be moved to the pile at the back of the yard. She also mentioned that she is older, so she needs to reduce the amount of work that needs to be done, while also saying that this is the way that has worked for so long. She does her fair share of lawn care, which I suppose I'm fortunate for. The issue is really that the lawn has to be kept to her standards, which I have tried to address, and she claims that I am holding my opinions and assumptions against her. Am I being gaslit over here? I am at a loss of words on how to handle her anymore, and I'm really feeling that I just need to find an actual house for myself and just be done with this HOA nonsense. At this point, I think the simplest solution would be to go back to paying a third party to handle lawn care, giving up the hope of helping the environment. Now, Carol, our Karen of the story, is a 60-something divorcee with adult children. She recently described her work-from-home job as editing one PDF a day. My partner and I have schedules that keep us out of the house 12 hours a day during the work week, leaving the weekends for cleaning the house, errands, and work on my side hustle. I'm working to be more eco-friendly and sustainable, and I'm very interested in the no lawn movement, but I understand that I share the property with another person with her own views. At our first condo meeting, I asked about starting a compost pile, and she said that it would attract bears. I do not spend any time outside on our property because of several factors, on top of my lack of free time. Our backyard is very buggy, regardless of the time of day and year it seems, to the point that Carol sets up her chairs in the driveway. We have a 20-pound dog that she asked us early on to not let him do his business on the lawn, and he does not get along with her cat that frequently roams the property. Carol spends much of her time out there, so I would have to be prepared to listen to her on a phone call or having a very one-sided conversation about her life. Like the last time I went outside for a while, she told me how her 3 neighbors were conspiring against her. She told me at least 2 of them blocked her number, but of course, she is the victim. Insufferable Karen, how would you handle her? I would just want to make peace, but at the same time, I want her to know that no, this ain't cool. What would you do? The HOA is pulling some really shady stuff here in Documenting Potential HOA Retaliation by Grumpkin. I'm in Virginia, single-family home. I've been in my home about 10 years. Never had an issue with the HOA other than an occasional superficial reminder about the driveway weeds. The details. About 3 months ago, I got a violation for some landscaping stuff that was never an issue in the past, but okay, whatever. They told me to fix A and B within 60 days or they would fine me. I completed it that weekend and assumed that it was over. After 3 weeks, I received a follow-up notice about a fine hearing being scheduled because I didn't fix the violations. I contacted the HOA management company rep via email, telling them that I completed A and B as required. He replied saying that he confirmed it was complete and my violation has been cured and the hearing was canceled. A few days after my canceled hearing date, I received a letter saying that at the hearing, they determined that I didn't fix issues C and D, which weren't on the initial notice, and they were going to move forward with fining me in 30 days unless I completed those tasks as well. I reached back out to the management company, and the rep said that he was sorry, but the board changed their mind about the violation. I was ticked, but I completed the new violations they identified. I completed it just before the quarterly meeting. I haven't attended in years because it always has been a petty gossip fest about neighbors' grass and crap. Anyway, I attended, and the HOA manager was like, "Oh, you're here. Do you want to talk about your violations?" So I went into a little rant about how they moved goalposts, combined new violations with the original ones, weren't being consistent with the 30-day resolution time frame, and, most of all, the fact that they weren't clear in what they wanted done. They responded with silence, and I had a feeling that I just made some enemies. The HOA company manager spoke first about having my violations reassessed, and the HOA president, I assume no one introduced themselves, said that they would personally do my assessment, and then someone else said they would help him, and that people only join these meetings to complain. A few days later, I got an email from the HOA manager saying that my violations were cured. Fast forward to a month ago, and I got a letter from the HOA saying that I had new violations for code blah blah for general maintenance and debris. I just can't think of a more generic and vague violation than general maintenance and debris. I was initially ticked off, and I felt that it was retaliation, but I spent a weekend making my place look good. I power washed everything, put down fresh mulch, I removed anything resembling weeds and all that stuff. It's looking good. That was done 2 weeks ago. Well, I got a new letter yesterday about a scheduled fine hearing notice for failure to fix my general maintenance and debris violation. I'm going to attend the hearing this time. What should I do to prepare, and what questions should I ask to help me determine what their actual motivations are? I think I'll just sit there quietly and let them do all the talking this time instead of confronting them. Unfortunately, I feel like they have all the power and authority. Do you agree with this commenter? They say, "I think it's always a good idea not to be confrontational. However, you need to stand up for yourself, being as diplomatic as possible. It might help to prepare a statement in writing." The fact that they're not telling you specifically what the violation is a concern. The violation notice should tell you exactly what's wrong and specifically which restriction it violates. I would point out that you worked hard to comply, but were never informed of exactly what the issues were. I also suggest reading up on the laws in Virginia pertaining to HOAs. One thing I found with a quick Google search is that Virginia is one of the many states where courts view ambiguous covenants in favor of the homeowner. My guess is that your covenants are ambiguous, which is probably why the violation notices are not specific. I wouldn't imply that you're going to sue, but just knowing the law may make them think twice about enforcing unclear restrictions. Yeah, can they do this stuff? Let me know what you think. This story takes place in an HOA, and it's called Ex-Friend Expected Free Rent, posted by Deleted. My lifelong friend wanted to live in my condo that I wasn't actively using because I had relocated to another city, apartment, before I was going to then rent out the condo. I told him that he could use it for a small amount of time until he found his own place, maybe even 6 months, just not for too long. I paid $280 a month in HOA dues. It had a pool, security, and so on. And property taxes ran me about $200 a month, plus the electric bill was then assessed by unit each month. I told him he could stay at the condo for $550 a month, just my cost to keep it going, and this was in Southern California. He agreed to pay, didn't seem to grumble or anything, and I honestly thought that I was doing something really nice for my longest time friend. An 820 square foot condo with a pool for $550 a month in California. you're just not going to find that. I wasn't making a dime off of him. I just didn't want to lose money and subsidize his lifestyle out of my pocket. Fast forward a few months. My other friends all inform me that he's been texting them about what a B I am that I dare charge him rent to stay there. How could a friend charge money for that? My friends didn't know what was the deal, so they asked me, and I told them that I'm not charging him any rent. I'm literally just asking that he pay the cost of the unit and nothing more. For reference, when he left eventually, I rented it for several years at $1,300 a month, so he was not even paying half of market rent. I owned the condo free and clear, so I had lower costs with no mortgage, thus allowing me to charge him less and break even. Finally, when we eventually went to move my stuff out of there, and yes, it was fully furnished too, with a nice TV, kitchen items, everything you could need. He had broken about a quarter of my dishes, he had left a used rubber hanging on a trash can, and while my 105-pound girlfriend and I packed my stuff, he sat on the couch, not offering to help at all, even once in 3 days. He laughed about the rubber, and he took a giant dump in the bathroom and clogged the toilet, requiring a plumber to fix. And then, when we went to dinner, he forgot his wallet and never paid me back. He even woke us up early after we were up late packing by talking on the phone with online friends that he met on various chat forums. We didn't remain friends long after that, needless to say. I couldn't believe just how oblivious that is to just get such a good deal and then badmouth the person for doing you a favor and then trash their place. I spent a bunch more on housekeeping, and my real estate agent who was renting it out after he left said that the housekeeping service had never seen a place so filthy. We noticed that too. Besides the rubber, there was just dirt and filth everywhere. He wiped it out. Do you agree with this commenter? If that was my own brother, I'd have his butt on the street immediately after finding out that he was crap talking such a sweet deal. And OP drops this face palm right here. It kind of makes it funnier if I mention that he had inherited over $100,000 just a few years earlier, quit his job, blew through the money in 2.5 years completely, and then started trying to mooch wherever possible. I urged him to invest that money and continue working, but he didn't. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. What do you think? Lock up the vacation homes. You never said what, Lock. Posted by Cynical Altruist. This was fun. A while back, my friend and I had a brief job working a managed vacation home place, basically renting really nice houses to people over the summer. Think $1,000 per day, and you have the basic units. At the end of the fall, the place hires a ton of people, students, to go around and winterize all the summer homes and prepare the year-round cabins for winter, like hauling wood, replacing storm windows, checking insulation, adding blankets, stuff like that. So my friend and I sign up. Pay is per day. It's pretty good for just a week of house maintenance. I don't know if it was technically legal since we never signed a contract, but I knew the people who ran the property, and they were down to earth. They were honest people that I could yell at if I didn't get paid. Now, also on this property are personal units. Basically, someone bought or leased the building, not really sure which, but the maintenance is still taken care of as if they were a rental. These units have special needs as it was put to us. Stuff like alarm systems, sheds, garages, registered gun and liquor cabinets, cameras, and, most importantly, door locks. That last one is the reason this post exists. So, towards my last day, my friend and I are tasked with opening one of these personal units, basically just making sure that it can be moved into. We check the water is on and running, that the pipes on the outside are off, and that everything is just right for the people who live there. We finish and prepare to lock up the building. There's the deadbolt, keyed by the property, and a padlock on each door, the front, back, and basement, and the shed and garage, if there is one. When the family isn't there, a property padlock is put on, basically bought off the shelf and cataloged in the most beautiful and easy-to-use key cabinet that I've ever seen. Was later told that this prevented master key theft despite the hassle. When the family is arriving, they put on padlocks if they supply them, or they leave them off if they don't. Once the personal unit's occupied, all padlocks are removed for fire safety purposes unless put on by the homeowner. None of the other units we did had supplied their own padlocks. As far as I know, the service was only offered because someone had accidentally broken a deadbolt in the middle of the winter and wanted a second way to lock the door. They offered this as a solution, and everyone else was butthurt that someone else got this solution and they didn't, accidentally setting a precedent. Usually they can only accept combo locks and keyed locks, so the combos and the keys can be filed away for their use if necessary. But not this time. Nah, this time it was smart padlocks. These locks were biometric, and they had been sent with incredibly specific instructions. Incredibly specific instructions that were illegible since the ink had been ruined by the protective oils on the metal. So we called the family. A man answers. "It's a padlock. How frickin' stupid do you have to be to not know how to use a padlock?" "Okay then, bad time to call or just a jerk? You decide." The park manager says that once these locks are on, the staff can't take them off since they're not keyed for our fingerprints. Well, I'd expect everything to be done by the time I get there. Isn't that what I pay you for? Well then, definitely a Richard. Now, one of these things about these locks was that they were all fail secure, so if they lose battery, they are locked until they're powered. The batteries on these things hadn't been charged in a while. These locks were also not rated for outdoor use, and we were expecting thunderstorms that week. You can see where this is going. We didn't charge the locks. There's no cover over the front door, the basement door, garage, or shed, so that's where we put the ones that had the best battery life left. The rain would fix that. The others were pretty much about to die. And the next day, it rained super hard. From the park manager, I learned that the family had to wait an hour in their car before the manager arrived with bolt cutters. They were fuming at the amount of money they had just thrown out, and each lock was like $50, and the park manager cited his call in the damage, and insurance refused to cover, stating that the locks had never been intended to be used outside. After this, electronic locks of any kind were banned, and it gave the park manager a reason to remove the rule allowing tenants to request or put on padlocks. Revenge is a dish best served cold. Mine has been cooling for 10 years and counting. Posted by PettyAF452. I, a 40-year-old female, have been married to my husband, 44 male, for 20 years now. We have 2 kids, 16 female and 13 male. My husband is what I would consider a high earner by middle-class standards. Also, strap in folks, this is going to be long. I've never told anyone, so... 10 years ago, and by complete coincidence, I found out that my husband has been cheating on me with men, and that from before we got married. We live in a smallish town in the south of the USA, and him coming out as gay will have consequences. I believe that that is the only reason he's not come out to anyone. First, here's how I found out he was cheating on me. He got sloppy, left a credit card bill for a secret card in the pocket of a coat. While going through it, I found all the telltale signs of infidelity. Payments to a hotel in a nearby county, restaurant bills, gifts, flowers, certain items, and so on. I started camping outside the hotel on days that he told me he would be late, and I saw him bringing different men there. I am very good at compartmentalization and have a great poker face. It comes with growing up in an abusive household, so I was able to give myself the time to cool off and to come up with what I should do. First thing I did was getting an STD panel since I didn't know how safe he was with his partners. It came out negative. Then I convinced him that we should use items since I was having side effects from the pill, and he was okay with it. I had a long think, and I came up to the decision that I was not going to confront him, nor was I going to leave him. He was able to provide me a really good lifestyle, one that I would never be able to afford with my high school diploma, like a cleaning lady, a nanny to help with the kids, regular spa days in a country club, a new car every other year, luxury family vacations every year, and he was a good dad, a good partner, cheating aside, and really good in bed. But I was not going to let him have a single guilt-free week in his life. That would be my revenge. I started small, planning great date nights for us, telling him that I felt our relationship had cooled and that I wanted the spark back. Then I would sometimes slip into conversation some tea about a cheating husband, a gay man that has been using his poor wife as a beard, complimenting the only gay couple we know for having the courage of being real men who were out and proud of themselves. On the other hand, I would praise him as the perfect husband to anyone and everyone, especially if he was in earshot. The amount of guilt gifts I got was astounding. The man was even sending me flowers weekly. It continued the same way for years. I could literally see how much it was weighing on him. Me? Well, my parents were part of a commune with the concept of free love, so I was the same. I just considered myself in an open marriage. It seems that cheating is easier to ignore if you are not that big on monogamy in the first place. and my husband was keeping me satisfied, so I felt no need to find a partner of my own. Then, 4 years ago, I guess he met the love of his life. He started seeing just the one guy. I was seriously thinking of ending the whole thing, especially since I've started a business by then and was able to bring in enough money to support myself and my kids while maintaining my lifestyle. But then, he went and introduced his side piece to us. He freaking brought him into our house, introduced him to our kids, and that was enough for me to keep tormenting him. Apparently, he was a new friend he made while golfing. He started hinting at moving to another state, one where it would be easier for him to come out. I refused. I told him that my business was here, and I was not going to start over in another state. Also, the kids had their friends and extended family here, and it would be unfair to uproot them. Then, he started trying to start arguments. I guess he wanted us to fight, and then asked me for a divorce. I just stopped all those arguments in their tracks. I would just agree with whatever he said. He was right, I was wrong. And, to make it up to him, how about a nice dinner and some great hanging out time? He hated that. I knew, from spying on his phone, that doing stuff with me felt like cheating on his boyfriend. The audacity of this man. I also knew that his boyfriend was pressuring him to leave me almost every day. He was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He started drinking, and when it got too heavy, that was when I decided that enough was enough. I wanted to ruin his life, not his health. Also, I grew up with an alcoholic father and did not want that for my kids. So, I gathered all the evidence of his infidelity over the last 9 years, photos with different men, conversations, his Grindr profile, even though he no longer had one, everything. Then, I hired a divorce attorney and mailed the evidence to his employer. He has a morality clause in his contract, and adultery breaks it. All his relatives, including parents, as well as our church, I was never big on religion like him. It was like a bomb exploded. He was fired. The congregation turned on him for cheating, not for being gay. Let's keep that straight. I would never allow my kids to be a part of a church that was discriminating against their father, even if he was not out. His parents wouldn't take him in after I kicked him out, and he was shamed publicly. Gotta love that small town gossip mill. And the cherry on top, his boyfriend was run out of the town, and he couldn't follow him because he wanted to fight for custody of our kids. Now, almost a year later, I am a free woman. I got to keep the house, my car, and my business. He got 75% of the retirement and investment accounts, but he won't be paying alimony. I got full custody, and he got visitations. I also got child support. He had to move 6 hours away to find a new job. Couldn't put the last job he worked at his whole life as a reference. His relationship with his family is rocky. His reputation in town is ruined, so he can't move back anytime soon. The love of his life left him for good, and my kids only tolerate him because I did my best to shield them and to tell them that he is still a good father to them. I also made sure to treat him politely, never talk bad about him, and had a lengthy talk about how their father being gay is okay. It's who he is, and it's not his fault. That the only wrong thing he did was hiding it from me. So, I guess the results of his cheating was years of guilt, followed by a ruined life. Now here's an edit. Let's make something clear. I am not the good person in this story. We were both bad. I'm not here trying to get pats on the back or to be told that I did well. I know that what I did was messed up. I'm here because I wanted to tell someone, and I can't do that in real life. Called the cops on HOA Karen. She's going psycho on me with updates. Click the video on your screen. You don't want to miss this one, and I will see you there.